Hello everyone. Welcome to the first part of Put Your Arms Out in Front of Your Partner short challenge. As usual, short doesn't mean without plot. So we will be adding some more to the parenting storylines and some more as usual. As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons and all of you who still watch my videos. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the uploads. And let's get into it, shall we? Hi, come online. I have a challenge for you. I hope it's a nice one. I'm not doing anything mean. It's not mean, no worries. Press X stood out, but go on. I mean, to be fair, he has a good record, so it shouldn't be so bad. Are you hinting on something? Not at all. Why would he? Yeah, it's not like there are two people who are absolutely awful when giving challenges. Apo-chan, the betrayal! But he's right. Is it mandatory to participate? It's not, but I think you'll want to do it just for the fun of it. Alright, shoot. I saw it as a trend going around social media. It's to put your arms out in front of your partner to see what they do. Obviously the goal is for them to hug you, but it's funny to watch the process. No, that sounds pretty harmless. And sweet. Why can't we have challenges like this all the time? Because some are sadists. Hey! Shush, he's right. So, everybody in? Yep. Looks like we are getting some hugs this time. As if on cue, Shigeru heard Kentaro arrive home the second the chat agreed to participate in the challenge. He left the phone on their bed and rushed downstairs to welcome his husband, smile making its way to his face when he saw Bruno wiggling excitedly around Kentaro's legs, wagging his tail as if the man was gone for weeks and not just a few hours. Though Shigeru shared the sentiment in his own way. Things were always happier when his husband was around. However, unlike usual, he stopped by the doorway instead of jumping around Kentaro's neck. You're early today. Yeah, well, someone decided it was a good idea to leave repairing the heating system at the last possible moment, so now they are trying to air out the smoke for the whole gym. Of course. Anything to say a couple of thousands. So now it's going to be much more than just a couple. He paused, as if he only now realized something was different, and tilted his head. Something wrong? Oh, no. He stepped into the hallway and held his arms open, waiting for Kentaro's reaction. He had to stifle a laugh when Kentaro's forehead scrunched as he measured him with what could only be described as bafflement. What's going on? Nothing. He shook his arms a little to hopefully nudge Kentaro in the right direction, but it didn't seem to help. Am I not allowed to go through, or... Of course you are. Then why are you standing here like this? He mimicked Shigeru's stance, and Shigeru really had to put in his whole willpower to not laugh. Seconds ticked by, slowly turning into a whole minute when Kentaro shrugged and grabbed his hand, carefully pulling him into his arms. Okay, I'm not letting you go until you tell me what this whole thing is about. About this. Huh? Shigeru smiled and leaned in for a kiss before he hid his face in Kentaro's shoulder, surprised to feel tension in his posture. It was a challenge to see how long it's going to take you to hug me. He pulled away a little, just enough to see into his husband's face. Now that he looked closely, there was clear worry in his eyes, dimming the usual joy. What's wrong? Kentaro visibly hesitated for a beat, but then sighed and kissed back. It's my distant family. Remember how we talked about the possibility of having a kid? It could happen if you are up for it. What? I'll tell you more. Just let me take a shower first, okay? Shigeru nodded in daze and let go, confused and more than a little worried now. Dasha didn't want to say anything in the chat, but the way his heart now hammered into his ribs was telling enough. The issue didn't lie with the hug itself. He was more than happy to be on the receiving end of Terushima's affection. But the truth was, he hadn't initiated hugs often. Or any affection, for the matter. He didn't want to confuse Terushima, or hurt him later on. Go? Are you home? He quickly logged his phone, a smile curling his lips when Terushima barged into the room and immediately plopped down next to him, grinning like a little kid. What got you so excited? Being with you, of course. Dasher gently sweated at his shoulder, feeling his cheeks heating up. But the excitement was infectious, as always, and he soon found himself relaxing again. Oh, by the way, don't make dinner tonight. I have a surprise for you. Oh? Not telling you, but it's going to be great. You'll see. Dasha decided to trust him with that, even though Terushima's definition of great surprise was slightly different than his own. However, considering he wasn't supposed to make dinner, it meant food was involved, and if that was the case, then nothing could possibly go wrong. Reminding himself of the challenge, he straightened up and opened his arms in Terushima's direction, waiting. Terushima's brows knitted together, but just a moment later, his whole face brightened with one of his sun-like smiles. Do you want a hug? Dasha no less than melted. The fact that Terushima still asked despite knowing what he meant, just to not hurt him, made his heart flutter. Yes, please. He didn't have to wait for long. Terushima jumped up even before he finished and squeezed him in his arms, the soft giggle by his ear sending pleasant shivers down his spine. Truly, no place in the world was safer than his fiancée's arms. You have no idea how happy I am right now. Really? Yeah. I know it's just a hug, but I'm just so happy you trust me enough to ask for it. Smiling, Dasha snuggled deeper into the hug, subconsciously running his fingers over the ring. Of course I do. You're my safe haven. You've always been. Aw, you'll make me cry. Wait, is everything alright? I was so excited I didn't even ask if... More than alright. It was a challenge to see how fast you'd realize I want a hug. Terushima hummed quietly and then pulled Dasha closer, gently rocking them from side to side. Okay, then all's perfect. While harmless, Tachi still spent a considerable amount of time thinking of how to go about the challenge. He wasn't a stranger to Hayato's affection. On the contrary, he welcomed it even in its fullest, most clingy amount. However, he rarely took initiative in physical affection. Not because he wouldn't want, but because it still felt rather strange, even after the long years they spent by each other's side. Come on, it's not that odd. And besides, he would be the one actually hugging first. You just have to put your arms out and wait. Filled with dedication, he took a few settling breaths to calm down his fast-beating heart, and then all he had to do was wait until Hayato finished his daily exercise. And also make sure he noticed when that happened, so he did the challenge before Hayato would hug him on his own. He carried on with scrolling on his phone, one ear always listening for the usual click of the door of their bedroom. His heart sped up again when he heard the lively footsteps heading into the living room. He jumped up, surprising Hayato judging by his expression, and stretched his arms out towards him. What are we doing? The corner of Taichi's lips stuck upwards at Hayato's use of we instead of the potentially accusing you. He didn't say anything and just shrugged, moving his arms a little to, somewhat unnecessarily, bring Hayato's attention to them. Making me guess? Alright, I'll play your game. His light tone carried over to his smile, the lively twinkle in his eyes as he came closer, releasing even the last bits of tension Taichi might have felt over the challenge. Watching his every move, Hayato first tapped their palms together in a little childish way of doing a high five, but then shook his head. Nope. Right. He then tried to hold his hands too, sending pleasant jolts through Taichi's skin, but also shook his head eventually. Not this either, huh? Are you watching my expression to guess? Yeah, I've mastered reading your face. You can't hide anything from me anymore. Before Taichi could start to feel any type of way about it, Hayato's face brightened with sudden understanding, and then Taichi found himself engulfed in the warmest of hugs. There we go. A soft chuckle escaping his mouth, Taichi hugged him back, all but melting in his husband's arms. Good job. I'd sure say so. For once, Kindaichi didn't absolutely dread visiting the local hospital. Sure, he was nervous every time he walked the usual route, but for a completely different reason. As of lately, his steps led to the childcare ward more often than he expected, but he couldn't help himself. He had to know how the baby he found was doing. It was a whirlwind of emotions that raged through him for the last 2 weeks. All from fury at whoever left a helpless baby in trash, to happiness when the nurse and doctor told him the little boy was a true warrior and feeling much better now. He even got the chance to visit him in the NYCU, even if just through the glass panel, his heart swelling with feelings he didn't know he could have. All in all, he often stopped by when he had a free moment, always curious about the improvements. Though now, as he opened the door to their house, there were other things on his mind too. I'm home. He only got a weak welcome call as an answer, and furrowed his brow. Okay? Everything alright? Worried, he rushed inside, almost stumbling over his crutches along the way. The nightmarish memories flooded his mind again, but he soon breathed a sigh of relief when he spotted Kuny sitting on the couch unharmed, if maybe a little paler than usual. Oh, thank goodness. I was worried you got hurt again. What's wrong? I don't know. What is wrong? Alarm bells sounded in Kindaichi's head. He got used to dealing with Kunimi's occasional slump, but this was different. The way he just sat there and watched him uncertainly, as if wanting to ask something but being too scared to confront it, broke Kindaichi's heart into pieces. He sat down on the couch too and instinctively opened his arms out towards him, his voice spiking even more when Kunime just slumped against him, clenching the back of his t-shirt as always when he was scared of something. Did someone hurt you? Is it because of that asshole from bank? Shaking his head, Kunime hid deeper into the embrace, and Kindaichi could swear he felt him trembling. Shh, it's alright. Just take a deep breath. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Biting hard on his lip, Kindaichi nodded and pulled him closer to his chest, unsure what else to do to help calm Kunime down without knowing what was the reason behind his fear. I promise. I know I failed already, but I promise it won't happen again. I'm always here with you, no matter what. He patted Kunime's hair, his mind racing to think of some way to make him open up a little. Yet, just like always, he couldn't come up with anything when it actually counted. For Atsumu, this challenge was more about testing the waters than anything else. Maybe it was an overly pragmatic way to look at it, since all that was at stake was a hug, but it didn't hurt to be realistic sometimes. He was sure Sakusa would laugh at him if he heard him, but at least Atsumu would see him laugh. Silver lining and all that. He's probably going to be so confused. For someone as smart as him, he can be so dense sometimes. Though, maybe it's because he takes everything too literally. That was indeed an issue he tried to deal with for as long as they were dating. It wasn't a deal breaker, obviously, but he wondered what could be done to make sure Sakusa didn't misunderstand him. Especially after he had already witnessed how much his words could hurt Sakusa, even in the long run. He could still see flashes of insecurity in his boyfriend's face sometimes, a remnant of the stupid challenge from years ago. He could still see the uncertainty in his eyes whenever his anxiety kicked in and he turned to cleaning in search of calm. It hurt like all hell. Well, hopefully this will go better since it's a sweet one. He got up the moment he heard Sakusa come into the living room, smiling widely as he reached his arms out to him and waited. Sakusa paused, his brows knitting together as he tilted his head. What's going on? Nothing. He made a grab hands gesture in hopes that could help, but Sakusa didn't move an inch. What are you doing, other than blocking my way? Rude much? I'm not doing anything. Obviously you are. What is this? He gently pushed into Atsumu's arm as if trying to move it away, only to frown when Atsumu resumed his previous position immediately. You're being weird. What? Homie, that's so not nice of you. He sighed, giving up. I'm waiting for you to realize I want a hug. For a while, neither of them moved. Atsumu was already coming to terms with getting absolutely nothing from the challenge when Sakusa took his hand and pulled him into a hug, a faint blush creeping into his cheeks. Can't you just ask? That's no fun. Despite feeling rather grumpy over the clearly failed challenge, he couldn't stay upset for too long. Grin soon curled his lips as he hugged Sakusa back, enjoying being close once again. You're thinking too much of me, you know that? It's not my fault. I'm just cautious. Atsumu wanted to snip back, wallow about the unfairness of such statement, but something about Sakusa's voice stopped him. Leave him be for once. It's your fault he's worried anyway. And so he just tightened the hug and let himself rest against his boyfriend, already planning their next outing in his mind.